Hi, I'm John Giesek, and welcome to the C-Suite Sherpa podcast, where we shine a spotlight on business experts and resources that you should know. I'm excited today. We have a guest, Lesli Doares, who's the owner of Foundation Coaching and the founder of the Hero Husband Project. And they specialize in marriage coaching for men. So, Lesli, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your business and the results you get for your clients.
Well, thank you so much. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist by training, and I did the traditional therapy for a long time. And very early on in my career, I ended up with a little 6-year-old girl who was basically the rope in her divorced parents' tug of war. And I realized there was nothing I could do for this 6-year-old. I couldn't give her any tool. And so I figured, okay, I got to get to her parents. And so it's been this process of how do I get in earlier and earlier and working through the years with couples. And I finally got to the point a few years ago where about 50% of the people who were calling me were men. And I really was getting very frustrated doing the couples work because I would see these guys really putting forth the effort, really trying. And so I finally took the approach of if we want to have successful relationships, we have to stop ignoring 50% of the population. We really need to have somebody stand up for them because relationships are a combination of the two people in them. Each person brings stuff to the table, each person takes stuff out. If there's an issue, it's never just one person.
Yeah, that's a great perspective from a guy's point of view. When the husbands call, what is their presenting problem? Not necessarily the core root issue. What are they calling up with and just, the symptoms, I would guess.
What they tell me is, I want my wife to be happy. And I'm going, that's a great goal. But guess what? You are not in charge of that. But that's what they've been told, right? Your job, and I've actually had women say this to me that his job is to make me happy. And it's like, please stop. No, it isn't. And that puts way too much burden on the man for something he actually can't do. Now, as a partner, can you make things easier for the other person to be happier? Sure. Can you make it harder? Of course. But ultimately, it's up to that person. And a lot of times, what a lot of the men tell me is that they'll try to do what the woman asks for, but then the goalpost keeps moving. No matter what I do, it isn't good enough. And so, what I do with my clients is I rebalance the relationship. Marriage is actually not 50-50, it's 100-100. Each person is 100% responsible for what they're putting into the relationship. But here's the thing, most people have no idea what works. Every relationship they've been in before this one has ended. So if I keep doing the same thing, I'm going to end up with the same result, right? Being able to give and receive feedback about here's what works for me. Can we try this? Or here's what works for you. Let's try this. It's about negotiating to a decision that both people can live with. Because if the relationship is only working for one person, it is not working. I don't care what kind of relationship you're in. One-sided relationships are basically not relationships.
Before we hit the record button, you and I were talking, we had a great conversation. We almost forgot to have this podcast. We were talking about most of the people that are going to view this are in the corporate space, and a lot of the CFOs, CEOs, even fractional guys, they're all in the boardrooms
Mhm.
dealing with the C-suite players. And you made a great analogy about how what happens at home is tied to what happens at work. Can you just expand on that a little bit and tell us the connection for that?
Yeah, because I don't like the whole work-life balance because it's personal and professional balance, right? Most of us have to work. We enjoy what we do. We like the fruits of our labor, but that doesn't feed our soul necessarily. Our connection. There's been so many studies about the importance of relationships. In fact, there's a big article about the 5 things that people say on their deathbed, and none of them is, I wish I spent more time at the office, right? It's, I wish I'd spent more time with my loved ones. What's going on at home really sets people up for success in the rest of their lives. If things aren't going well at home, they're going to be losing sleep. They might not be as healthy, as they could be. They might not be as present or capable, and it's going to show up in their work. And if you have employees who are having difficulty at home, it's going to impact their productivity. And the idea that we can keep these things separate is a fallacy. We can't. How do we maximize, the return?
Right, exactly. We do a men's ministry group. Most of the men that we talk to, they're just they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They're just doing what they've seen before, whether it worked or not. That's
Right.
the only thing that they know. So how do you address that?
Well, and that is so important because um, nobody has to go to relationship school. I think people should. I don't think anybody should get out of high school without a relationship class, but because everything is relationships. And what you're talking about, the modeling, it's so funny because I had this client and like we got on a call one day and he goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He goes, all those communication skills you've been teaching me?" I said, "Uh-huh." And she goes, "She's starting to use them." And I had never met her, but because he was using them effectively, it changed how they communicated with each other. So, I mean, it was so exciting because modeling, and this is what leaders do. You can lead by fear, which I don't find to be the most effective form of leadership, or you can lead by example. This person is walking their talk. They're not just out there pontificating. They're actually in the trenches. They're actually doing the same stuff. And, and that does a couple of things. One, it shows the skills, but it also shows here's somebody who has maybe changed what they're doing, has learned to do it better. Pro athletes have multiple coaches because they constantly want to get better. They've got their physical coach, they've got their mental coach, because there are all these aspects that come together and make you the best. But we seem to think that somehow our marriages, relationships are completely different. I'm going, wait, the same rules apply.
Nobody's born with the intuition to have great relationships. An idle field grows weeds if you don't tend to it. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing with relationships. What do you think the biggest hurdle for your industry is going to be?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is technology. What people don't understand about relationships is they are meant to challenge us. The biggest challenge to any relationship is this person over here is different from me. They've had different experiences, they have different viewpoints. It's like they're different. Now, what do we do? How do we accept that this is their experience? Two people growing up in the same household didn't even have the same experience. People don't experience the same event the same way. If we want to be really effective, then we want all that information. Some of it may not be helpful, but some of it's like, oh, I never thought about it that way. That's success. Part of the challenges, and it's the challenge of our field for a long time, is that people don't see the inherent value of it. I was talking to my husband the other day, and our neighbors just got engaged, and he wanted to give them my card, and he was kind of being snarky about it. I said, no, they actually need my card, not because they're in trouble, but because they probably don't have some of the things that would make them successful. I keep telling people, I'm not a punishment, right? To me, if somebody comes to me, they see that, oh, there's more that I could be doing. If this isn't working, why am I still pounding my head against the wall? Let me learn to do something different. I mean, you're talking about sports. This is why teams watch films. What did we do well? What do we need to do differently? Here's the team we're going to be playing next week. How do we change up our game plan? Same thing in business, right? We have things that change. And the businesses that adapt are the ones that are successful. The ones who keep wanting to do it the same old way are out of business.
We have to be equipped with tools walking into the situation. Otherwise, it's going to be a dumpster fire.
Right. And it's really interesting because a colleague of mine, his name is Jed Diamond, he talks about 5 stages of love. The first is falling in love. The second is becoming a couple. His third, disillusionment. And he said, and that's where all the problems start because it's like, oh, you're not the person that I thought you were. The rose-colored glasses have come off because there's some reality setting in. And it's not that that stuff wasn't there before. We just kind of didn't pay attention to it. It's like, now we've hit this stage, and the successful relationships are the ones who work through that, who recognize, oh, this isn't the end of the world that, my husband leaves the light on or whatever, or the coffee cup. My husband's always left a little bit of coffee in the bottom of his coffee cup. Who cares, right? It's not a big deal. I
Yeah,
just
that's
clean
part of the
what I,
maturity process too. Well,
right.
I appreciate you sharing all this with us, Leslie. Let me ask you a couple questions so that the viewers get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. So we'll
Yeah.
go through a quick lightning round and you'll just answer the first thing that pops up and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So coffee or tea?
Coffee in the morning, tea when it's cold.
Okay, great. What about cats or dogs?
Cats.
Cats. Okay, do you have a favorite quote or a phrase that you think about often? Can you share that
I,
with us?
I do. One of my all-time favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou. When we know better, we do better.
If there's ever a time where you get to sit down on the couch in front of the TV, what's on? What are you watching?
Oh, usually some kind of mystery, police procedural. I love puzzles. It's all how do the moving parts fit together?
And what about a book? You got a favorite book or something that you're reading now that you'd recommend?
Oh boy, favorite books are really, really tough. For my business, anything by Brene Brown, I think is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan as well. Let's switch over to a bucket list. I want you to share something that was on your bucket list that you got to check off, and maybe something that's still left that you know you're going to nail it.
Well, something that I checked off a bucket list was I actually jumped out of an airplane and I'm terrified of heights. So I did that. Something that's on my bucket list is there is a dude ranch in Northern California near where my family had a cabin that I have wanted to go to forever. So that's something else on my bucket list is going to this dude ranch.
Oh, that sounds amazing. From a guy in Chicago, that sounds amazing. All right, Leslie, let's wrap up with this one. So, if you'd share with us, one of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome, personal or in business, to get the success you're having now, and maybe the lesson you learned from it.
So probably my parents' divorce. It's sort of what got me doing what I do, but actually experiencing it from the point of view of a child, where you actually have absolutely, well, one, you don't have a full understanding of what's going on, but you also have no control over what's happening in your life. And so I ended up in parts of my life looking for love in all the wrong places. So the challenge was working through a lot of that. And it actually gives me, I think, really good compassion, really good empathy for working with my clients, because especially if they have children, I need them to understand the impact on their children. There's a lot out there saying, oh, divorce, kids will be fine, whatever. My snappy retort to that is, yeah, kids can survive a car accident too, but you don't drive into a wall going 60 miles an hour on purpose. You try to avoid those kinds of things. Part of the reason why my ideal clients are actually parents as well. Not that I don't support marriage in general, but especially if you have children, you're not the only ones impacted.
I appreciate you sharing that, Leslie. I really do. People are going to be watching this. They're going to want to reach out to you, maybe even get to know you a little bit better. So, what's the best way for our audience to track you down and reach out?
Well, there's my website, which is www.theherohusbandproject.com. I'm also on pretty much every social media But here's the thing, guys. My mom spelled my name without an E, so it's Lesli. If you go to my website, you can take a 5-minute relationship quiz to find out how your relationship is doing.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate you offering that to everybody, Leslie. Yeah, so it was great to meet you. Thanks for taking the time out today, and let's reconnect again soon.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much.